Meena, I think this particular title, that is Feel as a Sex Object, is a very powerful title. Like it intrigues a lot of people in the first instance, and it is almost like thesis statement. And what does so I want to ask you, what does language mean to you? In general, language is act as structure, central for structure. So they act mediums. Languages are the major point of any book that we produce. What is language mean to you?
Thanks, thharunee, for coming here for the question. I want to take time and thank Kranti and Naeem from Lavakan for hosting this, I think, at 24 hours notice. And to everyone who showed up and, like with all the traffic, even I was late to my own event. Big thanks to all of you. Like, this feels like a dream just because even the idea did not exist like a day ago. So it's so heartening to know there are readers here who come. So thank you all so much. Like, this is a real personal thanks. Now coming to Dharunee's question about the title Fieldwork as a Sex Object. I generally think the titles are very important for books. It's like I don't know, in Tamil we say pottu vekkra madri, even though I don't keep up Hindi. I think it's like the final, the consummation of the work that you have done. And I pay a lot of attention to it. For me, this title actually was the initial starting point of what I wanted to write about. Because a lot of people have written about, being online. And one of the things about being online is that everybody who is online has to be a girl online. In the idea that you get commodified, that you get, you become a subject. There is a gaze that is looking at you. And you have to perform for this gaze. So and I felt that this commodification of being online or, being treated as a sex object, irrespective of what you do, is a struggle. I think, like, you're a woman in academia, like a lot of people here are like journalists and writers and scholars, and it doesn't matter how much we accomplish, in terms of theory, in terms of qualification, in terms of research, we are still always viewed as, women, or we're viewed as like sex objects. And I felt like that is so pervasive through academia, so I wanted to write about it. And I also wanted to, her to take charge. So I wanted her to, Amy, who is like the central character, I wanted her to write about what it means for her to do field work here. Like, because field work again is like something that requires, like, I don't know, an anthropologist, someone going there in the field. And here she was there in the digital field, in the online space, and trying to understand what is going on. So I think the title was a combination of all of that. I also think that, sometimes the title is the first thing that comes before a book comes. I think your question on language is a very broad question. That yes, language. I
just want to know what is your approach for language.
Yeah, what's my approach? Yeah, I think that yes, that's the question I was trying to answer. Is that the online or language, for instance, is, like now we saw with the recent wave of protests how the language completely seeps in, so that the street, what was a meme has now become a placard. What was and I also think that the extreme onlineness of it, like 404 not found, like you have to be an online person to get what is going on, or and not only showed, I think, especially the recent protest, as a opening to talk about language, is that protest can come from any corner, and it can come from even, I think, the kinkiest parts of us. Because I was like, how am I going to explain in 100 years about, let's say to my parents about, I asked for a face sit, I didn't ask for fascist. I'm like, the absolute untranslatability of this within, let's say, an Indian family context. And then I really feel that this kind of language and the fracture of language that we witness, or the very specific meme language that we witness. For example, everybody here knows that if somebody says Barnaul Lagao, what does it mean? It's a very Sangi response to anybody from the left wing or any women fighting or protesting or saying something negative. The immediate answer is Barnaul Lagao. So, I think that way in which a language has been reduced to mimetic content or, memes, and I think that is something that is entirely about this book. And also, because I felt that when I had to write this, how do you write a book about being chronically online? Because most books flow at a specific time, but the life of us online is a life in which things are so rapid. Like we are getting pushback so immediately. Somebody is triggered immediately. People start piling on immediately. You become a trending hashtag immediately. So how does fiction that we have been trained on, let's say, the European idea of the novel, or like the Indian idea of the novel, all of this, or the post-colonial novel, but how do we capture the idea of the doom scroll? And how does language? I also think that, and one of the experiments I did was not just this title, but also the title of the chapters, where it was like, how do you use a chapter title the way somebody uses a YouTube thumbnail? A YouTube thumbnail is where all the clickbait happens. A YouTube thumbnail is where all the rage baiting happens. People want you to click, because unless you click, you don't watch. So you need this hook, and this is really part of the fallout of language in an online culture. So yeah, the book was informed by my obsession with understanding language.
I'm particularly intrigued by your experimentation with the structure of a book itself. In your last novel also, one side it is a fiction and one side it is an autobiography. And now it is very new, it is almost in new age literature, at least in the contemporary literature. I guess your experimentation will be, I believe your experimentation is a very risky thing, at the same time very new thing. Because we never saw something of this sort before, and you may find yourself with a lot of critics from traditional novelists. Did you find yourself in that space?
No, I think I'm very friendly, so people may say something behind my back. I have not yet encountered people coming to my face and saying, we don't like your book.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe they don't like me. I just don't have any way of knowing that, I think it's so yeah, it's also a question of social media, right? Like, I think maybe even if people didn't like me, will they say they don't like me? Maybe somebody would, but I don't know. It's also a question of cancellation. Like, can you say that you don't like Meena Kandasamy and risk getting cancelled? No. That's very narcissistic. I'm sure people are allowed to do that. But what I'm saying is, no. I think everybody. Like, I have stopped having literary opinions. No, I'm not. No, it's not about me. You are free to say. Please, that's not the takeaway. You're free to say my writing is shit. But really, I think I've stopped having literary opinions because, like, you say something and nobody is going to understand that it comes from a critical point of view. People are like, oh no, she's jealous, he's jealous, this is some old feud, this is about like... So I think that the internet space again is very vicious. Either you say something good or you say nothing at all, and that's the only safe way to be. No, but in terms of being experimental, I think that I have not heard this as a criticism, but I've heard this as good advice. And my own publisher said to me, Meena, if you say that your book is experimental, the booksellers don't want to touch it. They don't want to do anything with experimental literature because the idea of the experimental literature is that it's boring. But I'm like, no, I don't think this. I think you can be experimental and very interesting and very risky and very risky and like all of these very hot things going on with experimental writing. But yeah, I don't know how people are going to respond to it, because for me I think it's less about being an experiment as much as also trying to see people here. For instance, some of us would have been on Orkut. I mean, the older generation, like we've been on MySpace or some of the older forms of the internet. I don't know, like WordPress or Blogger or Blogspot. And I think the thing is that when we are writing on those websites, it feels very real, it feels hyper real, it's real time. But today, all of these websites are graveyards, they don't exist. And I felt the same about X or Twitter as well, that for all the obsession that we have about what's happening on Twitter and who gets cancelled and what hashtag is going on, who is attacking somebody, that all of these are going to end up as broken links and possibly just disappear in the garbage dump of the internet. So to chronicle that as it happens was also something interesting for me. So yeah.
Yeah, you said internet is both memory and graveyard.
Yeah.
Do you think you captured Anna's life, and do you think you are archiving someone's life? Do you think it's an archival project before its disappearance? Because something or other comes up, like this kind. We know this sort of violence is always there, but the form of violence changes from time to time.
Yes.
So do you think this is also an archival work of a woman's life?
No, I think that will be very far-fetched. But one of the things that I would like to say is, it's I think was more an archive of the kind of interactions we have had, the kind of discourse that we have had, the kind of political. Because I find, for me, the starting point is that why are people very vicious against women who call out fascism? There's a very specific hatred that goes against women who call out fascism. And I think the underlying reason and the line of attack is always to say you're immoral. And to understand why is it that women who call out fascism are called immoral is because fascism as a system is immorality. It's immorality because it puts women below everyone else. It takes away the rights of workers. It changes it is run for the sake of big business. It is founded on some kind of superiority. And when you call out the immorality of a system, the first thing they do is to say, no, but you are an immoral woman, so you cannot talk about us. And I think that understanding of what is happening to discourse, especially to women who speak out, and women have been at the forefront of calling out fascism. And I think for me it was like all of this, to capture each and every single thing, how these responses take place, because this response is a template. Like it can be you, it can be me, it can be any woman in this audience. You call them out, you know exactly what they're going to say. Randi, they're going to say X, Y, Z. So they have a few catchphrases, and I think I wanted to write about that. And I also think that I have witnessed the hatred of the right wing for the last since 2012. So a lot of people are coming into, oh, this is happening now. But I think my first incident of like being given rape threats, or actually started from Hyderabad, from Usmania University. I was taking part in a beef festival that was organized in 2012, and I just tweeted about it. I said, oh, this is awesome, and I think that Gemini TV's OB van was set alight, and there was stone throwing by ABVP, and the police escorted us safely. So I was like live tweeting. And then people were like, oh, bloody bitch, you call this an awesome experience. It'll be awesome when you're gang raped and telecasted live. So this kind of history has like 15 years of, facing online hatred. But I generally think that, it's not like, oh, Meena Kandasamy talks about her life, or, Tharunee talks about her life. I think then it becomes very reduced into one subject position. Like, like it becomes very personal. It's my story or your story. And I wanted to make it fictional so that anyone can fill them in that box. And they can understand this is what happens to any ex who is there. It's a placeholder. And the fact that she's privileged, the fact that she's upper caste, all of this protect her. But the fact that she's a woman at the end, nothing can save you from damnation when you're a woman. So I think it was all of this for me. So yeah, but I also think the funny thing, because you're a scholar and you brought up the idea of archives, is that there is this entire tendency to talk about archives in research. Like it does, and it's huge, and in the American Academy it's huge. But I also think that the counterpoint to that is that they talk about all of this, but let's say Palestine is happening, the genocide in Gaza is happening, 85% of content, the YouTube links have been pulled down. Every content that was showing the worst of the crime against humanity, the crimes against children, they restricted by saying it's sensitive content. So where is, on the one hand you say you want an archive, but the actual archive of disturbing images that show the empire at its weakest, that show and people are like, and this is where I'm like, oh, I have issues with trigger warning, I have issues with all of this, because ultimately you are not allowing a record of your atrocities to exist, So that's my idea of archives.
And also, I believe, as Audre Lorde says, like most of the Audre Lorde's work goes on how through erosity also we can claim our own power. And your work on Carnegie also goes on the same line. How do you think our life of Anne is on the similar journey to claim proud power through that same eroticity or sexuality? Although in the book we couldn't really, there is no perfect end card for it, but do you think the journey is?
No, So, no, I think the thing is, it's possibly what they say is very right, and I am not going to dispute that. But I think it's much more complex. And why I say it's much more complex is because so this entire book, both my conception and the creation of Amy is about how she's reduced to a sex object. But what I've often encountered is that you do not have to use your sexuality to claim any power. That even if you want to be treated only as a mind, even if you want to be treated only as an intellectual person, only as an intellectual person making political arguments, people are going to zero in on you, who you are. Like, people are going to find ways to. And I think I used to have a trouble with this kind of, especially with fiction or other representations. I used to have trouble with this. Like, because in books you only see that the romantic women exist, the women who can fall in love exist. And when I wrote my first book, I was like, no, I want to put a woman in 60s at the center of it. She has to be old and she has to hold the story together. But I think this sexualization is inevitable, and especially given that we are moving very much from a text-based discourse to a visual discourse, like say Instagram or like whatever else is happening, TikTok. I think the more we are going to encounter this kind of, sexual commodification or sexualization of women in general. So, do I think it's a power to be claimed? No, I think it's almost like it's both a slap and a carrot at once. I don't know how to say that, because it's like it's a double-edged sword. So on the one hand, people will feel like you're doing this, but on the other hand, oh, you have pretty privilege. I think it's very complex. So yeah.
This brings me to another question, like the Amy character. Why you happen to choose a Brahminical woman as her protagonist, but not a Dalit person who has so many other layers of discrimination?
No, I think for me there are two central characters. There's Nimi, who is very visibly and Dalit herself, and there's Amy. And for me, I wanted to use a character to kind of show how privilege operates. And I think that for the broader question was a philosophical question. The question comes from, it's very easy for us, like let's say I have a political stand, it's very easy for us to show our solidarity with people we like, with people who are perfect victims. But it's very difficult for us to show solidarity with people we don't like. Like, you know what I mean? The idea that I don't like this person is an attention seeker, this person writes on privilege, this person comes from, says the inappropriate things, but at the same time, when she is being abused as a woman, will you go and stand for her, or will you withhold your solidarity because she's unlikable? And I think this is a litmus test for politics, that we cannot, gatekeep our solidarities, because then at the end of the day, we'll only do it for our friends, right? So I think this is a very interesting question. I also think that the broader question I wanted to hold out or lay out was about I am a person who has faced a lot of online abuse for 15-20 years. So if I wrote about any Dalit or Dalitized or backward or Bahujan woman, everybody would read this as fiction. It would be Meena Kandasamy, right? Like I cannot. And for me, every single book that I've written, people read it as my story, and I have to also, as a writer, jump out of that trap that there are other stories that I can say. I don't have to always repeat my story, but I definitely have been abused. And I've been abused not only by the right wing, I've been abused by the left, I've been abused by, secular democratic parties. So I have witnessed so much of internet abuse that, the easiest thing would have been to write my story, but I was not interested in that. I think it's a larger issue,
Yeah, I know you are an activist. As someone who is actively taking part in student activism, I can rightly say, when it comes to women and their sexuality, always, no matter it's right wing, left wing, or any sort of group, they always have to have a say on women's sexuality, and we're always under a moral control. As I say on the campus, back in University of Hyderabad, no matter if it is the mothers,
yeah, I think 2 days ago there was some interesting internet discourse for those who are chronically online. Casual sexist bourgeois.
Bourgeois, yeah.
Yeah, so we are reinventing the wheel, but yeah.
At the same time, what do you think about a Brahmin women's and Dalit women's friendship. See, most of the friendships, as we saw in Anna's life, most of the friendships are very capitalistic in nature. In general, women friendships or bondings are driven by so many layers, like capitalism first and patriarchy. Capitalism always keeps us in a loop of competition, which make loop of competition for male's approval, jobs, whatever. But at the end of the day, for male's approval or male approval, where most of the capital is withheld. So, in that juncture, what do you think about the Dalit women's friendship towards our Annie and her friendship towards the Dalit women?
So there are some things that I believe are like very true at the heart of things. One of them is love. One of them is friendship. That I believe that if you're really in love, I think that you're relating to another person as a person. That these things that you navigate caste, you navigate 1,000 systems. But at the heart of it, love is so powerful as a force that these things become secondary to what you feel for the person, and you literally will burn down the world for that person. And we've seen this happen. And I genuinely believe that this friendship that is portrayed in the book is not a friendship that's easy, and it's a friendship that requires a lot of give and take and push and pull on both sides. But I also think for me this book was a kind of manifesto. Because I, for instance, like as a person, and I can really share this, is that I have 5 close women friends who mean the world to me. And even though I have very important male relationships which have become family or which have influenced my politics, I think these female friendships are what sustain me. And I generally believe that there is I don't know who started this or how the Whisper campaign exists. But in general, people believe that women do not get along with each other. People think that women are jealous of each other. People think that women don't give opportunities to each other. People think women don't have each other's backs. People think they're stabbing each other. Maybe it's also a university thing, like because you're in such a small group of people with less opportunities, and it becomes like this. But I don't know, because my lived experience is really saying, and also the other idea is that people always assume, for instance, if there are 2 women, they're competing. And especially with 2 pretty women, like it becomes almost a question of like, oh no, here they're going to really, people see 2 pretty girls in a frame, they're waiting for a cat fight. It's almost like that's the music they're waiting for. Like they're going to tear each other's hair. They're going to fight over the next man. Like it's such a stereotype, but it doesn't happen. Like I don't know. I meet a guy I like. I text my friend before anything else. Like I got this entire committee. Like if I have to draft a message to a guy, it goes through an entire committee who all vet the message and then send it back, and then it goes to the man. So the man is dating 5 women. And he's only interfacing with one of us. So yeah, and the same thing happens, so I'm reading that as a girl's girl, and I'm like, do we all come from different backgrounds? Yes. Are there tensions in our backgrounds? Do we understand each other? Are we all the same age group? Very similar, all of us in our 40s. But then I think that, so because I have lived through this idea that, a women's friendship can be that special for you, like, and, we spend so much time worrying about men, and, like, I think we should give the same importance to women as well. And you will always find that maybe, like, it's very easy to give up hope, to think that you will not, because I used to think when I was really young, I'm very nice with men, I get along with boys are fun. But then you find girls and you understand that the way they can open their hearts for you, their homes for you. I just genuinely believe that, and I also think as a writer, it's a story I want to smash. I don't want to believe that women have to be pitted against women. I think we have taken that shit for too long, and it's very painful,
So hope is upfront.
No, it's not hope. I'm living the dream. Like I genuinely believe that women are my biggest cheerleaders, and so yeah. Like I can tell you something, Tharunee. Like when I started as a writer, I think at 20 or 21, I decided I'm never dating a man who is a writer, editor, author, publisher. And I made this decision because I was like, one day I'm going to be an old woman, like 70 or 80. I don't want any man to say, oh, she's there because she slept with me. She's there because she was with me. I'm like, no. None of you are getting the credit for it. Maybe my dad gets the credit because he really put a lot of hours developing me or letting me be myself, or being very strict and letting me rebel against his strictness, but like no man gets a credit for what I do. And I know but therefore I understand that every single opportunity that I've had as a writer, whether it's a residency, whether it's somebody saying, I want to publish your book, I want to look at your manuscript, I read your work, I want to interview you, every single thing has come from a woman. And this is like 25 years of me being a writer. With men, there's always strings attached. Like even if a man actually says something to me, I'm like, okay, what's your game? Like, what do you want in exchange? I don't trust them at this point. So I genuinely believe that, if anything, I can say that, yeah, women have helped me out. Like.
Cool. And before going back to misogyny, I would like to ask few more questions on the lens of caste. Is it remain? So, the Ami's character is quite complicated, that is there. But at the same time, what do you think about this? Like, since Ami being a Brahmin woman, she did her world literally collapse for a while. But what do you think? What if a Dalit woman was in her place?
No, that's what the book is about. That's what the book is about. That's what Nimi says. Like,
exactly. Would you like to?
The book is exactly about that. What if she's got all these structures that protect her, but what would happen? So the book is. I'm not going to give the spoilers of the book away, but the book is really essentially about the question: what if it was somebody who did not enjoy all of that? So I think it would be a different type of disaster. Nimi actually calls her out on that.
Exactly.
Like, you're obsessing about this, but what if it was the other way around? Like there's so many. If you were a Dalit woman, you'd have been pushed to suicide, or your father would have been shamed, or you would have been hounded. And I think that definitely the system works differently, and that's also precisely why I think choosing a privileged character allows you to shed light on what would happen for those who don't enjoy that privilege.
As someone who is working in the activism right now, I would believe the entire community would have been held accountable on the Twitter. The entire community.
And that's something else that Nimi says, and she says that in Tamil. I think it's not edited. She'd say, "Nigelaram outhu potu aadravanga." People would immediately name the community and shame the community for that. So yeah, it's 100% true that it depends on who gets the blame, and obviously blame doesn't stick to some people. So yeah.
Yeah, I believe the very I particularly believe if it was at least through the story that I have read, at least survival was possible in Ami's case, but in Nimi's case, survival would have been at the stake, and we would have been. I'm sorry for the trigger warning. I would have seen a dead body in the next day. That's what I believe.
No, it is true. It is true, and the thing is, part of why I wrote this book also has to do with the idea of shame. So, so I think in 2019, this Pollachi rape incident happened. A series of women were blackmailed using videos of their rape. Like, the rape video should have actually landed the men in jail, but instead of landing them in jail, the men were using these videos to call the women again and again for, more rape and for more gang rape, and creating more videos that were, completely distributed. So it became this kind of, you could not go and take your parents' support because your parents will tell you to go and die. So the women were like either choose, and I think that's really part of the problem that we have as a society in India, is that if somebody is leaking it, you cannot, blame that person or make sure that person goes to jail. Like, you are the one left, feeling and handling and taking the toll for what is happening. And I think that's hugely problematic. That one of the things that we have to, how do we counter shame as a society? And I think we counter shame in Indian society by becoming shameless. We are like, oh, you are releasing my photos. Like, I'm going to release my photos. Like, I'm going to do the Kardashian thing. Like, you're going to have to deal with it, because I think at what point, how do you fight against that? So I think that's even even now, and I think Pollachi was like what 6-7 years ago, but even now, like you read some woman dies in Indore because a guy has a selfie. He threatened to do it, and this threat that men can hold over you. I'm like, you really have to also talk to parents, I believe, because it's not just a conversation with young women; it's also a conversation to have with parents. Like, if your girl's nude pictures are there, you have like now every excuse to say it's AI. You have every excuse to say no, like it's fine, like it's my body, like everybody has a body, what I mean. So I believe that it's very urgent as well, in that aspect also, yeah.
Through this book, I can reiterate one of you have said so many instances the casteism is a feminist issue. I believe through this book you happen to reiterate the same point, and like Dr. Ambedkar says, women are the gateways of caste. Women are the gateways of the caste, gatekeepers and gateways of the caste. And I believe even in Ami's mother, she has been withholding the entire trauma of her family, or even Ami's trauma, and so that it doesn't. There is particular line when she was in 11th standard or 12th standard, she goes to her mother. She is unable to find a partner, she is unable to find a lover, and her mother asked her, the mother who is very privileged and progressive in nature, asked her to buy a vibrator instead, right? So instead of there's so much possibility of finding a partner out of her own caste, out of her own circle, but Amit didn't choose to do, but for a vibrator. And what do you think?
No, that's a joke. Her mother says like, oh, she goes and complains, oh, I'm single, and her mom says, get a vibrator. Like it's meant as a joke. So I think that no, I do believe and I agree with you on the fact that women are the gateways of the caste system, but also women have much more incentive to break out. They have so much more potential to discard this, because they can quickly realize what the entire system is, and it's built on nothing. It's nonsense upon stilts. So to call it out is not so difficult.
So I believe technological advancement has not displaced any culture of gossip, character assassination that used to happen in a circle or in a village or any setting, in the correct setting. But we are dragged into the new world of social media, where everyone is involved with a mask, without their identity. So, do you think women are being stripped away with the dignity and are being shamed at a larger level, and agency is at I would really believe agency is really at stake and concern when it comes to digital media, and it only degraded, I believe, the technological advancement, because we are at a new big stage rather than a small village, but we are whole together at a country level, at a global level.
No, I agree with you. I think that the thing with technology is that there are certain things about technology that we did not anticipate. We have not anticipated that technology would make us post-literate. Like, people do not necessarily have to know how to read or write. People are using the audio function to go and search for what they want, and people. So in some senses, it has taken us into post-literacy, and which I think is an advancement. And also in some senses, it is taken away, at least in a country like India, the idea that English is going to be operative, because there are content creators doing work in languages that have nothing to do with English, who are getting enormous amounts of payout revenues, engagement. So in many ways, the digital world does not follow the rules of the the offline world or what is established. Having said that, I do believe that there's no separation of the fact that we're talking about an internet, but we're also talking about a couple of oligarchs. We're talking about Mark Zuckerberg. We're talking about Elon Musk. We're talking about 2 or 3 people. Who is the other guy? because again, there's another very rich guy. Yeah, the guy who owns Sam Altman, and they have very problematic views on women, for instance. They have very problematic views on reproduction. All of them are extremely worried about the fact that white people do not have a certain proper birth ratio, birth rate at reproductive ratio or something. So they are like an absolute handful of misogynists who are running the entire show, and therefore that's why some of the advancement that they come up with, let's say Grok. What does Grok do? At some point, Grok was able to nudify women. Like you just had to post and tell Grok, can you show her naked? And Grok was doing that, and was doing the images of children. So what we have got with the advancement of big tech and with the development of AI and all of that, is that women have been objectified much more. Children are objectified and sexualized, and I think at some point even Indian government had to call Facebook and say why were they showing child abuse material, like in their ads and things like that. So I think it's really really problematic, and we have to hold big tech to account. I believe that for all of the hatred, and we also know that hatred gets amplified because that's how the algorithms function. So
yeah, I don't think it takes like a minute for them to get away with all the violence that is happening online. It's just for the entire system, that is the entire capitalistic architecture is dependent on all the violence that is committed.
absolutely, yeah.
And it just doesn't take a minute for them to get away with this. Do you have a hope in all our big techs?
No, I don't have hope in big tech, no, but do I think that organizing against it or being online can be an answer? I don't think we have to abdicate the online space. Like part of the stress of this book, or the underlying tension, is also between Amy and Nimi, not just being Dalit and Brahmin, but also Amy telling that I don't trust the internet. I don't trust the internet for organizing. I don't trust the internet. Like we have to put bodies on the street, and that's what she believes in. And Amy is the opposite, that she believes that she can trigger the right wing, she can get a response, and that her response and the provocation actually helps her make her case. And I think these are two different ways of looking actually at the world of like, can we use the same big tech to organize, or like, for instance, I think the biggest example of hope for big tech is how the word cockroach became a negative, it was a slander, but they seized control of it. The pages got so many likes, and then the protest actually managed to dislodge the union minister, and that's not a small thing. Like in some way, like the online organizing helped all of this, and they could go through Instagram, which is where the regime did not have as much control. And we finally were subjected to Modi doing midnight Instagram videos, which is like the kind of counteraction to what was going on. So I definitely think that people, we know how to subvert, and we just have to find that, and it just happens, I believe. So I am hopeful. I mean, there's no way except to be hopeful in the light of what we have seen.
Yeah.
So yes.
Also, I believe the humor or satire that comes out of a repression is very valuable to help power systems accountable, and these are the most accessible ways as well for us. And as I see Anna's character, the way the book is built is very humor in nature, savagely humor. Do you think the way she's explaining, narrating the entire story is more about her survival mechanism, or was it the survival mechanism for you to explain things in that way?
Where does the author end? Where does the story start? No, I think part of the way I constructed Amy is this very irreverent person who doesn't think a lot. She doesn't think through, but she knows the grammar of how, what gets the response and how to be arrogant. And part of it is from her privilege. So she can say these things that are really funny, but also, know how to keep below the belt. But I think for me, the understanding of humor is possibly coming from the fact that everyone asks me the same question. And I always struggle to answer it. And I think it comes from the fact that I write about extremely depressing things. So, my first book was about caste atrocity where 44 people were killed. My second book was largely based on my own experience of domestic violence. My third book was written, during Brexit, when there was absolutely extreme racism, but there was also Islamophobia. So, London was changing its character, and especially racism against biracial children, biracial people. So, and now this was about, being witch hunted online and what happens. So, I think in some ways, because of what I personally go through, I think the work has to be light, because it's a question of readability, but also it's a question of, delivering the message in that happy tone, I think. So, yeah, or the funny tone.
But always, satire is the best way to. Satire is the best. I strongly believe satire is the best way to. Like when the system is in itself very complex, and for us, for our own survival, uh, satire has been the best way to question the government, to hold them accountable.
No, it's true. I mean, like, and it's not just like, it's not like I woke up and discovered this, because you look at politics. I think the best takes are always like from the Tamil meme nation, like, with Vadivelu clips, or like maybe like this morning I saw some Tamil clips. Like basically, it's a lot of these movie clips that become stand-in for political discourse. So yeah, I think fun and laughter. I even saw an AI-generated video of I don't know. Modi getting married. Mubarak ho. So yeah, somebody said AI will kill jobs, but Indians will kill AI.
Yeah.
So we are getting there.
So at the same time, I really appreciate how you have made this Amy's character, and such large national issues go side by side parallelly. Like the internal conflict of Amy's has never lost its shape. While you were trying to explain such big political shifts along her struggles, along her complex issues, how did you manage to put things together? How did you manage to structure them well?
Um, Thank you. So the thing is that, see, you're from HCU, right? So one of those things that we realized, for instance, is that I remember coming and taking part in protests with the Jack committee, with, after Venula passed away, and they had deployed the CRPF. I think paramilitary was deployed. There's all of these things going on, and it was a very intense thing. But I always believe, as somebody coming from the south, and I come even south of Hyderabad, I come from Chennai. It doesn't matter what you do in the south. Only things that happen in Delhi are debatable. They are topics for discussion. Like, it's almost like Delhi holds that, holds India in a chokehold. Like, if something, I remember talking to a friend of mine, he's a politician, and like, this was during the genocide in 2009, and we were like, should we do more? Like, what should we do? And he said, like, even if I die, I sit on a fast and I die. In Delhi, it's like eruma mattu mela mala penja madri. It's like rain on a buffalo skin. Like, nothing's going to change. So if we are protesting, we have to protest in Delhi. And I think part of why Amy had to be a student from Delhi, part of why she had to be inside these broker families who, run the show, irrespective of who is in power, was to also show that, like, that is where the power center is. So, Delhi students march, Delhi students fight, Delhi students face the water cannon. It gets a different level of traction. And the thing is, it's also a double-edged sword. Like, Umar Khalid is in jail, Shajil Imam is in jail. They pay the price as well. They pay a different price that that we don't pay. That the consequences are extreme for them. Like, or let's say what happened to Jamia students. Like, So for me, I always wanted to write this Delhi student activist book. So in some way, I felt that they captured our imagination, especially in the around, like, I think after Vimla's protest, I think what happened with the CAA and RC protest, there's a series of protests. It was very concentrated in and around Delhi, and I want to write it, show what happens when you're a student activist from there, when you're forged in those fires. So yeah.
Thank you for that answer.
Yeah.
And
Should we open it up to the public, or do you have any questions?
I want to particularly ask about the incel culture that is pumped by fascism of this country right now.
Okay, on incel culture, So, so for a long time, when people were asking me what was I working on, and I needed an excuse to be online all the time, for research. So I told everyone I was studying himself. For a long time, I used, an alt account to just follow this kind of. You saw what this guy Jaipur Dialogues was doing, right?
Yeah.
He leaks this picture of this girl. He makes people go after a minor. They also leaked the picture of I think another student protester. Thank you. They also leaked the pictures of another student protester had her dogs, and there was another man, I think called Hindutva Knight or something. So there all these. Then there's someone called Random Sena. I don't know if I get the names right. So they're really, really strong guys, and they had these different operations. Like they would have this named operation saying, okay, this is Operation X. We're going after these people, getting their accounts taken down. We're going after this activist, getting their accounts taken down. So it was a very organized thing, and I felt that when one of the big problems is. And I think even when we cite Black American scholars, even when we cite anything that comes from the West, I think the problem is that we are simply borrowing without understanding what's happening on the ground. And for me, this idea of the Indian incel is not somebody who's been denied sex or is a loner and therefore he believes in this 80-20. No, he doesn't believe in the 20% of men are chads and these 20% of men are dating 80% of women. He believes in another 80-20. And we know what 80-20 it is. It is 80% Muslim Hindus, 20% Muslims. It's this 80-20 that he believes in. And therefore I thought, who is the Hindu incel? But the Hindu incel is not the Western incel. Is not somebody just inspired by Tate or whatever shit. It's not somebody with low self-confidence. He has absolute superiority complex. And these guys are on a corporate payroll, they are working in the most corporate fashion. They have toolkits, they're organizing themselves on WhatsApp or Signal or Telegram, whatever it is. They go after people, everything is synchronized. They decide what's the hashtag. They decide who to go after. They decide what is the angle of attack. So, and I was like, this is corporate culture. That this is, fascism which is so organized. And, the incels who are here, the Sanghi incel, are not the Western incel. That this forum will require another kind of dismantling. This will require another kind of online organizing. And so, yeah, for me it was really, really interesting to watch this at very close quarters,
Yeah, we can open it.
Yeah, so
Would you like to ask any questions?
Naren has a mic, so yeah.
Ask you, since we are talking about sexual harassment and the protagonist of your novel has worked in the news broadcast industry, in the TV industry. My question is related to this recent conviction of Tarun Tejpal by the Bombay High Court, and the piece that News Laundry had published years ago, which was as a kind of an apologia for what Tarun Tejpal did. And the new allegations that have come out against News Laundry. I know your book is not about News Laundry, but it is since we are on that subject of sexual harassment, and I was wondering if you had any comments on that. That News Laundry's employees have made allegations about the kind of work culture over there, and Chinky Sinha is also the former editor of Outlook, the former editor-in-chief of Outlook, has also she has also said that she was targeted by News Laundry, by this boys club kind of culture that exists in the media. So I was wondering if you wanted to say something about it. I'm sorry, it's a long-winded question.
So basically, I want to share something. My first job was at 17, but my first proper job was for the Deccan Chronicle. I joined when I was 21, and I quit in a week. So the Deccan Chronicle had just come to Chennai, and nobody harassed me or anything. But I was like, I can't survive this. It was a cross between a concentration camp and a circus. I couldn't survive in the newsroom. No, I love all of you. I love journalists. No, I really have great respect for what you do.
but I couldn't survive. Like I couldn't take it because I'm this absolutely sensitive person. Like I hear a story, then I have to spend 5 years sitting with that story to get it right and to tell it. So I can't process at the same speed as other people. I mean, like, bravo to you. But what do I think about Tarun Tejpal? So I think you have to condemn this kind of thing. You cannot always find the right wing as a scapegoat. And the first thing I want to say is two things. We all understand that a rape allegation is a scorched earth policy. But who is the person who are the people who will absolutely destroyed the rape allegations? The first was Hamas on October 7th. The first thing they started was not about the killings, but they said Hamas had done all these rapes, and all of those claims were either proved to be false or not verifiable. So we understand that claims of rape, when they are falsely made, can completely kill resistance movements. But I don't think Tarun Tejpal is Hamas, he's not a Palestinian resistance that we have to go and fight for him and say, oh, he's being fixed. And I do not believe that I would accept. And I think the same thing happened with the Tigers, for instance. For a long time, people would say, oh, but the Tigers did this. But again, like, there's nobody has come and said the Tigers did this because, women who were Tigers were raped. We have stories about that. But did the Tigers do this kind of thing? No. But the idea of rape was used to, destroy militant movements, was used to destroy resistance movements, was used to give bad press to resistance movements. And I think for me that is more concerning. Whether Tarun Tejpal gets a bad press, he himself apologized. He himself apologized privately, he apologized personally, he apologized officially. So the question is, did things happen? I mean, like, for me it's very shameful that Anand Patwardhan, like, you have like an entire body of work behind you. You're 50 years of work. Why do you think something can happen in a lift in 2 minutes? Is that the limit of your imagination as a filmmaker? The 2 minutes in the lift, बहुत कुछ हो सकता है. Like, I'm asking the other question. Your question is nothing happened because they were seen laughing, but you're also a filmmaker. Anything could have happened in 2 minutes. So what I'm saying is that, people are like, just don't. And it shows you the extent, it shows you the horrible extent to which men will go and stick their necks out for other men. And immediately, say that women are making up stuff and. But what does a woman in Indian society gain from making things? If you say a man touched you, everybody else looks at you as you're an untouchable. Like, what I'm trying to say is, that's the society we are living in. Maybe things have changed. What I'm saying is that we live in such a regressive society that there's no, you're not like going to become a diva by saying that, somebody molested me, somebody did this something to me. So it's like people are taking this huge gamble, and it's a young person is gambling her life. You can't say, oh, this is somebody very old and she was settling her score. She was a young person who had her entire life ahead of her, who goes and makes this complaint with everything to lose. And so I think that, and if you say the right wing is booby trapping you, honey trapping you, oh, Uncle G, like, don't get honey trapped, don't get, booby trapped, don't get into all this, maybe have a sense of, don't get so slosh drunk. I don't know what it is, I can't make a handbook for Indian uncles. Like, but, that can't be the end point. So I definitely, but it's been very shameful. And the thing is, the other thing that I have observed, and these are all my observations, maybe I should allow other people to ask questions. I also observed that, people who are artists and people who are genuine are always single, but these kind of abusers, they always have a cult around them. Like, they're always trading in power, they're always putting their people, finding jobs for their friends. So the more powerful and entrenched you are, it has something to do with sociopathic tendencies, but yeah, this is not for me to share my discoveries of men and networking, but yeah, I just talk here. So.
Yeah, it's also interesting to see how here.
Oh, sorry. It's also interesting. I'm sorry, I woke up at 4 o'clock, please.
So now staying on topic that making seem women